There are two groups vying for power in the world, the globalists and the jingoists. And the globalists' back is up against the wall right now. And I talked about in my last video how they need some kind of flashbulb event. Anything short of that is going to be unsuccessful in the globalists continuing in rolling out their platform, which is not to speak to the ethics nor the soundness of the motives of the jingoists who are on the other side. Now, people need to understand one thing. With this assassination attempt, and that's clearly what it was, any media not calling it that is being disingenuous, and I think the only reason why even media agencies like Fox News aren't calling it an assassination attempt is probably for market damage control. Now, thankfully, this happened on a Saturday, because I can tell you that had this happened during an open market, we could potentially have seen a crash. Because our adversaries know that the only thing that can bring down the US dollar in the short term is an American civil war. What would start a civil war? An assassination of Trump would definitely start a civil war. Maybe not in the conventional sense, but as was portrayed, coincidentally, in that movie that was just released a couple months ago, go figure, that's what would unfold. It probably wouldn't be the classic civil war in the sense that it would be trench warfare and carpetbaggers and scallywags. It would be a much more dynamic, asymmetrical situation with a lot of different moving parts, balkanization, secession, and just all kinds of chaos across the board. But one thing is for certain, our adversaries have a vested interest in taking down the U.S. And the only way you can take down the U.S. is to get the U.S. to take down itself. And I would caution people against becoming overwhelmed with emotion at times like these. Because if I'm China or I'm Russia, I'm sitting back right now and I am laughing my ass off. If you were the Chinese or the Russians, a lot of people think, oh, the Chinese and the Russians, they prefer Trump. And if you're the Chinese and the Russians and you had to go for one guy that you would know would drum up chaos and would cause the ammo websites to crash as they are because so many people are starting to stock up on ammunition and body armor, you would go for Trump. Okay? And the only way to crash the US dollar, and understand that foreign investors, if they get an inkling that the U.S. is potentially on the brink of a civil conflict, they're going to divest. And U.S. dollars are not going to be viewed as reliable as they may have been in the past. The only thing that can bring down the U.S. dollar right now, at least in the short term, is BRICS or the U.S. themselves. Even a global crisis likely, as a tendency is, to flood to the US dollar as an economic safe haven because it's the cleanest shirt in a dirty laundry basket. But when you look at what is happening, the massive amounts of debt, it's insurmountable. Okay, the Fed's saying, yeah, we're gonna lower rates and all this stuff. If the Fed lowers rates, I mean, gold is going to 3,000 easy. And they only going to do that if oil continues to go down, which it's really not. It's trading within a very narrow window between about 80 and 85 bucks. And if that starts to go up, there's no way inflation's coming down. There's no way the Fed is going to be able to lower interest rates. Regardless, the big picture here is you have the United States and in its Western vassals completely at odds with itself. You have insurmountable amounts of debt. You have infrastructural problems as far as the eye can see. They've been deindustrialized. There's decoupling happening, so the price of things continues to increase despite the myth that prices are going down. You have wars being waged on every front. So an economic implosion is in the cards, and the black swan to trigger it would be the assassination of a candidate. Now, the thing that tipped me off to how crazy it's going to be is that even when you see these well-respected pundits who are supposed to be exhibiting a certain measure of decorum and professionalism, and rationality at times like these. When I'm listening to these live broadcasts, and this is why I don't go live with these types of flashbulb events that I warned people was going to happen just 36 hours ago, by the way. The reason why I don't go live is because it's such a fluid situation and emotions are riding so high and there's so much speculation and hearsay. There was fake reports by the New York Post that it was a Chinese guy, and then they canceled that because they found out that it was supposedly somebody who was affiliated with Antifa. But even that, we don't know. Maybe by the time this video is released, we'll know more. But it's incredible to me how passionate people are about these particular issues, and our adversaries are going to exploit that. If the ones that we hold in highest esteem in order to report the news, I'm talking about people within the alternative media, particularly, even Elon Musk came out and openly pledged his support to Trump. Well, why didn't you do that before? Why did it take an event like this? Especially considering this may well have just been some half-cocked lunatic acting in an isolated manner. Of course, there could be a control by proxy of some deep state apparatus, but that's all speculation and hearsay. It's as likely that this is just one unhinged person, but what this does mean is that those people are out there, and they're going to continue to do this. Now, if it wasn't, then we're in a lot of trouble, because they then were planning for that bullet to hit. So what else were they planning for? And now that if that is true, and I say a big if that plan has failed, then what are they going to do next? What sort of acts of desperation are the, dare I say, globalists going to resort to in order to usurp the momentum from the jingoists? Because that's what this is. This is a war between globalists and jingoists. It's a war between people who are trying to take over the world and people who are trying to just act out of self-interest. Ultimately, both end up at the same place over time. It's basically, do you want a war with Russia right now, or do you want a war with Iran? Because that's where this is going to go if Trump gets elected. And both are going to go to war with China. So that's where the two kind of agree on things. So we were one bullet, we were 1 inch away from civil war, which speaks, of course, to the fragility of the system. That it just this miss, this, by some people's accounts, I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of accounts about divine intervention, and you got to admit, Trump's a lucky guy, man. He's a very lucky guy. But it's incredible to see that just a miss led to the crashing of ammo sites. If you're just stocking up on ammo and prepping supplies now, then I mean, thankfully, you got another opportunity. You got another chance to do so, because this could have went really, really bad. This could have been the black swan that crashed the entire markets. Because again, the only thing that maintains the U.S. dollar as the global reserve currency hegemon is the confidence in the relative stability and soundness of the, not even necessarily the democratic process, but just the robustness of the Confederacy, the robustness of the Union, the state of the Union, or whatever you want to call it, the unity of the states above and beyond everything else. That is where the confidence in the greenback lies. I guess it's not a greenback anymore, but you know what I mean. So if that were to have been called into question, then everything starts to collapse from there. And then all Russia and China have to do is just sit back and watch the sparks fly. And that's when you're going to see Europe. Now Europe is going to lose their shit and start weaponizing like you've never seen before. In fact, a new plan has been unveiled in Germany to create these massive military corridors to facilitate the deployment of 800,000 troops across all of Europe, to create these corridors, these fast access corridors, so that whole corps of soldiers can roll through there. So what was very concerning about all of this is the emotion of celebrities, the emotion of, and I get it, but at the same time, as a prepper, emotion is never really helpful unless you're in an acute situation. If you're in an acute crisis and you need to nut up and you need to just go berserk to save your life or somebody else's, that's when emotion is useful. But fanaticism and the irrationality that it brings is never going to be conducive towards a better outcome, per se. What will be conducive to a better outcome is just a steadfast support of whoever your candidate might be, but not necessarily like rallying everybody up, because that's what's going to happen. I mean, think about what has just happened. I mean, it's incredible to think that, an American president was just attempted to be assassinated. And unlike the Kennedy era, I don't think the society was as divided as it was now. I could be wrong about that. There could have been massive protests that were missed by me, but I think this is something else. And again, we must consider the possibility that this isn't an attempt to undermine American affairs. Because if you can get a civil war started in the United States, that solves all of Russia's problems, that solves all of China's problems. And because America lives in an open door glass house where there is very limited amounts of regulation in terms of blocking out bad actors from spying, surveilling, everything is an open book in North America for the most part. It's despite the consolidation and concentration of power of big tech. There's still, we're an open book. It's not a tightly controlled society where every single thing is censored. There definitely is censorship, and that indeed is coming, but not on the scale that you see in other societies. Speaking of which, Russia, there's rumors floating around that they're going to be banning YouTube in September. Now, I don't know, the Russians are denying this, of course. They're saying that this is Ukrainian Western propaganda, but where there's smoke, there's fire, okay? So maybe not September, but maybe sometime soon. And the question is, why would you ban YouTube in September? What is it that you don't want people to see that happens shortly thereafter? Now, Joe Biden came out and gave some surprisingly lucid statements. In fact, I would say this is the clearest, most well-spoken Biden we have seen in a long time. One thing he did fall short of was calling it an assassination attempt, which it is. I mean, it's a textbook Webster's dictionary definition of a assassination, which is the attempted murder of a political figure. So there's no doubt that this was an assassination attempt. People saying that it was a false flag, that doesn't hold a lot of weight, because for this to have been a false flag, to nick his ear in the way they did and to not take him out would have been, I mean, that's you would have to be a really good shooter in order to pull that off with absolute certainty. So no, I don't think so. Maybe there was some Hollywood prop that he had on his ear, but again, but it's funny though, the same people who are always calling everything a false flag are now criticizing people for calling this a false flag. Like Tim Pool was one of those people who were like, oh, they're already calling it a false flag. And it's like, yeah, buddy, you call everything a false flag. So, you're getting a little taste of your own medicine. Will there be other attempts? Probably. There's probably going to be more desperation now. And that is the problem. That now they're going to bust out the Rolodex of ideas and say, okay, if this was, in fact, something that was coordinated at a higher level, and again, that this guy was MK Ultra by proxy, then they're going to have to go with a plan B. And, we know that there's some big tech investors and CEOs who've been divesting from their stocks lately, surreptitiously. So it makes you wonder, did somebody know that it's something, or really was it just more of a law of averages at this point? Was it just probabilities as opposed to some clandestine operation that the bigs were in on? It's tough to say, because I mean the likelihood of something like this happening was very high, to be honest, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened sooner. But the question is, will this? There is potentially a silver lining here, okay? And I think the way Biden came out, despite not calling it an assassination attempt, which I think was market damage control, despite not calling it an assassination attempt, you've seen Nancy Pelosi, you've seen Trudeau, you've seen all of Trump's political opponents coming out and condemning the act, which in some ways is kind of bullish when you think about it. Will it be enough to appease people? No. People are completely emotional, just acting on, first impressions at this point, and being pushed to and fro by the algorithms. Whatever the algorithm gets them, people are going to go out there and people are going to start causing shit if this thing continues to spiral out of control. There is no doubt about that. And when you have all of the key political pundits and media talking heads losing their fucking minds, within the first half an hour of this, almost crying and getting emotional. And look, I get it. If you support the guy, that's fine. For myself as a prepper, to be stoic, and I treat people always wonder, why do you talk about American politics? It's like, you got to understand that your president is not just the American president. He's really the president of the world, because the U.S. is the global superpower, and everything that happens there dictates ultimately what happens everywhere else. So we do have a dog in this fight. But what was I saying? Oh, geez, I lost my train of thought. Geez, I hate when that happens. We were going to release some other videos this weekend, and what's the point? What's the point when people are so riled up like this? All I'll say is that try to keep cool. It's never good to be driven by emotion. It's never constructive in any way, shape, or form, unless you're in a acute situation, a shooter situation. That's when you got to get crazy. But when the smoke clears and the dust settles, that's when you got to be a little bit more careful. If only because this could be some coordinated attempt by our adversaries to try to undermine the integrity of our political system. That's what this could be. And if it wasn't, and if this was something deep state involved, interagency related, then they're going to try again. And if they're really genuinely scared about Trump for some reason, if everything is just as it appears, and if the facade is real, then they're absolutely going to try something again. Or what this means, and perhaps this is going to be worse, is now they're going to ramp things up in Ukraine even faster. They're going to maybe not ramp things up in Israel, because it's starting to occur to me now that what Netanyahu is waiting for is Trump. But what I will say is that in Lebanon today, there's more rumblings that the U.S. is getting prepared to evacuate their citizens once again. But what I'd be concerned about is them escalating things in Ukraine and Russia, possibly in Southeast Asia. There's a lot of movement of American aircraft carriers and warships right now. And right now you have talks that they're going to be putting long-range Tomahawk missiles in Germany, which are going to be nuclear tipped, and there's going to be U.S. nuclear missiles in Germany. Okay, that's Cold War stuff. And when that happens, then, all bets are off. So Trump's Facebook and Instagram restrictions have been surprisingly rolled back. So I'm pretty sure that Mark Zuckerberg got a call from Benjamin Netanyahu and said, hook a brother up. Anyways, guys, I would not, if you are on the Trump side, I wouldn't celebrate too early, because this is kind of what happens is people think they've got this in the bag. Now everybody's like, yeah, Trump's going to win. No problem. And he's very well likely going to be much higher in the polls, but you just never know. Especially, and here's the thing, if he loses, they're going to say that the election was stolen. Okay? If he wins, the other side is going to lose their minds. And either way, Putin is laughing his ass off because he knows that the longer he can just wait it out, he can just wait out the collapse of the West as we're seeing it unfold. I mean, look at the politicians in Western countries will have all changed. Almost all of them will be different figures come in a couple of years, and Vladimir Putin will still be in power. Okay, and the Russian economy will still be roaring ahead and getting stronger and stronger as BRICS begins to unify more and more and develop. So it's just a matter of time. So don't celebrate too early because you just never know. Now, in terms of stocking up, yeah, it's election season, and as is typical with most preparedness companies that I've worked with, they always start getting slammed, and you can bet that this officially kicks off election season. Yeah, that should be... we shouldn't even have to delineate it in that fashion anymore, but this is officially the kickoff day for election season. So if you want, you can gear up. Canadian Preparedness, we do sell all different types of body armor. We sell emergency food supplies. Of course, we don't sell ammunition yet. It's just something that, for reasons, it's complicated to sell here in Canada. So we don't sell, but we sell everything else. Every other survival and preparedness related item, high quality stuff. We have some fairly high profile customers who only shop with us because they know we get them the quality stuff, and we know our stuff as well. So I can humbly say that at this point in time, doing this now. Right now I'm out here in the tractor. I'm doing some grading. We're doing just so many projects on the land. I'm trying to do the work. And that's the thing. A lot of people are just waiting around, not wanting to do the work, but you got to get out there and do the work. These are the days to do shit. And I don't even know how we're going to prepare for the dissolution of the United States, but that's going to be crazy. That's going to be absolutely insane to have to prepare for. Preparing for Ww3 is almost simpler, and I've always said this, that the harder scenario to prepare for is the one in which it's not all Mad Max. The harder scenario to prepare for where it's half Mad Max and half dystopia. Because in that scenario, you really don't know what you can do. Can you get away with doing this? Can you defend your property if some crazed group comes across it? Maybe, if the law's in your favor that day, or if they decide to impose it that day, everything becomes ambiguous. So I don't think we'll be blessed with a Mad Max scenario unless things go, and I say blessed because, a police state type environment would be much more difficult to navigate, I think. But I guess, it beats nuclear winter. Either way, guys, get out there, do the work while you can. These are the days not to get sucked into crazy rallies. Go cast your vote. I mean, but do you have to partake in, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what to do. I'm just going to tell you what I'm not going to do. And I'm not going to get involved in any of that. I'm not going to fan the flames of any of that. Believe you me, if I did that, I would be much more wealthier. I would be 10 times more wealthier if I came on here and I just said, hey, let's go Trump, let's go get him, and blah, blah, blah. Everybody go and buy a bunch of ammo. And trust me, I would be massive in this space if I could just bring myself to do that. And the reason why I don't is because I have true integrity. And so despite all of the people who say we like to make commercials on the channel, we make commercials for good quality fucking shit. So if you want me to start, wearing a Burger King hat, or start talking about, NordVPN or Raid Shadow Legends or some other bullshit like that, if you think that would be a better trade-off, then, maybe we'll start doing that. But for me, it's perfectly in line with my morals to promote products that are high quality, that are good, that things that I use myself. I mean, why wouldn't you want that? Why would you want somebody to promote something that they themselves don't use and are just getting paid to say. But anyways, I think it's just people who maybe they're just a little stressed with the way things are going, and they see influencers like myself as an easy target to just fling poo at, and that's fine. That's not going to serve you any better when the shit hits the fan. So I just hope that you're secretly preparing in the shadows and maybe placing an order or two as well. All right, guys, I got to get back to work here. I will, if something big happens, I'll come and share my opinion on it, but don't expect me to do it. Never expect me to do a live feed on something like that, because it's just too sensitive of a situation, and there's an error that you potentially make things worse. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.